Good morning, all of you. So, since the previous classes, we had a discussion. We had started with the discussion on chapter number 8, wind, storms, and cyclones. So, let us study further related to this chapter. Wind. What are winds? What are storms? And what are cyclones? Let us continue the topic. So, in the previous classes, we studied different activities, right? That is activity 8.1. And we studied activity 8.2, activity 8.3, right? Activity 8.4, right? So, in the we studied from all these activities, we understood some of the things. The first thing we understood was that we studied that increased wind speed is accompanied by reduced air pressure. Okay, when the wind speed increases, we had discussed that the air pressure gets reduced. So today, let us try to understand how these winds, how they are exactly produced. How do they bring rain and how they can be destructive. Through further classes we will study their destructive nature, but today mainly we will be discussing about how these winds they are produced and what is their importance, right? So let us continue further. We know that moving air is called wind. Okay, through the previous discussions we know that the moving air we call it as the wind. And we also discussed that air moves from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. So, we have discussed about air that air usually moves from a region of high pressure to that of a low pressure. The greater the difference in the pressure, the faster the air moves. So, how far is the difference? How great is the difference? That much the air moves faster. So the greater the difference in the pressure, the faster the air moves, right? So air expands on heating. Let us just find out how air expands on heating by this activity, that is activity 8.5. In activity 8.5, you need to take a boiling tube. As you can see in the picture, you have to take a boiling tube. You have to take a balloon. You have to stretch a balloon tightly to the neck of the tube. What you have to do? You have to take a boiling tube, stretch a balloon tightly to the neck of the boiling tube. Right? Then pour some hot water in the beaker. Now you have to insert the boiling tube with the balloon in the hot water. And you have to observe for 2 or 3 minutes for any change in the shape of the balloon. Then you have to take the tube out and you have to write the result, what happened to the balloon. You can see when it is immersed in hot water, you can see that the balloon is inflated due to the hot water. Because of the hot air, the balloon is a little bit inflated. You can see in the picture in the middle, right? So you can see boiling tube that is immersed in hot water. The balloon is a little bit inflated, right? Now take the tube out and let it cool down to the room temperature. Then what you do? You place the tube in a beaker of cold water, right? Then you observe the change in the shape of the balloon. After 2 to 3 minutes, you will get the change in the shape of the balloon. Now you have to note down the size of the balloon. So, what do you think makes the balloon inflated when the boiling tube is placed in hot water? So, when we place the balloon in hot water, the balloon is inflated. Why? Because of the hot air. The hot air rises inside the balloon As a result, the balloon gets inflated. Now, why is the same balloon deflated when the tube is kept in cold water? You can see in the third picture, boiling tube immersed in ice cold water. The balloon is deflated. Why? This happens because cold air does not rise up. Okay? We can infer from both the pictures that air on heating, it rises, and when it cooled down, it comes back to its original shape. Okay, that is, it contracts. Okay, so from this air we can understand that air expands on heating and air contracts on cooling. That is why we find that the balloon is inflated in hot water and it is deflated in the cold water. Next activity, activity 8.6. In activity 8.6, you have to take 2 paper bags or empty paper cups of the same size. Hang the 2 bags in the inverted position on the 2 ends of a metal or a wooden stick. Tie a piece of thread in the middle of the stick. Put a burning candle below one of the bags. You can see it in the picture clearly. Why is the balance of the bags disturbed? So you can see in the picture, hot air from the candle. It rises up and it goes inside one of the paper bag. The other bag, it has got normal air. So the candle, we place the candle below one paper bag, right? So that paper bag, it rises. Why? This happened because hot air, it is lighter than the normal air. And so the hot air, it moves up and takes the paper bag up with it. Whereas the other bag has cooler air and hence it goes down. So from this we can understand that on heating, air occupies more space. It becomes lighter. Warm air is lighter than the cold air. Okay. So what we understand? We understand 3 things. On heating, air occupies more space. It becomes lighter. And warm air is lighter than the cold air. These are the 3 things that we understand. Now, you may wonder why hot air balloons, if you see in the air, it flies. Okay. This is not a part of your textbook. I am just discussing it. Hot air balloons fly because the hot air inside the balloon, it is less dense than the air outside the balloon. So hot air is lighter than cold air. That's why the hot air balloon, it rises. Hot air is less dense than the cold air. So it rises, right? On heating, the density of the air, it reduces. Now, we are going to discuss about the generation of wind currents. Okay, so wind currents are generated due to uneven heating on the earth. The main reason of generation of wind currents is the uneven heating on the earth. In this, we are going to discuss 2 situations. That first situation we will be discussing in today's class. Next situation we will discuss in the next class. So the first situation is uneven heating between the equator and the poles. So what is this exactly? You can see in the picture. Okay, that regions close to the equator get maximum heat from the sun. Near the equator, sun's rays, they hit nearly straight on the near the equatorial regions. That's why what happened? the air over here, it gets warm. When the air gets warm, the warm air, it rises. And what happens? The cooler air from the regions in the 0 to 30 degrees latitude belt on either side of the equator, it moves in. Okay, especially at the poles, the air is colder than latitudes about 60 degrees. So, the warm air at these latitudes, it rises up, and the cold air from the polar region, it rushes in to take its place. In this way, the wind circulation is set up from the poles to the warmer latitudes, right? So, this is what happens when uneven heating between the equator and the poles is occurring, right? You can see in this picture exactly what happens. Warm air rises. This warm air cools and sinks, and the cooler air it moves in. So this uneven heating of the earth, it results in the production of wind currents. You can see the picture of this earth clearly. The warm air, it rises up, and the colder air, it takes its place. Right? It happens in all the regions, almost all the regions. Right? So, similarly, this uneven heating of land and water is another reason for the formation of wind currents. We will be discussing this in our next classes. Right? So, with this, we are ending today's class. Waiting for you all in the online class. Thank you.